Thank you, Pat Will, for your continued service to the congregation with your playing of the organ. That was Song in the Night. And so even though the weather outside belies it, we are moving into spring. Our theme at First Unitarian right now is becoming into spring. Thus, the wonderful mural on the wall behind me. It's beautiful. Our special guest speaker today, however, is Dr. Ferial Pearson. She'll be speaking, I'll introduce her later, on kindness as social justice. Meanwhile, I want to welcome everyone, whether online or in person, to the meeting of First Unitarian Church of Omaha. We're a pretty diverse group of people of different ages and genders and so on, different theological or beliefs or not. And so every service we have, you can count on being a little bit different than the one before. So welcome everyone to First Unitarian Church of Omaha. I'm pleased to acknowledge that where we meet here at Unitarian Church is on the land that was originally Omaha Oto. There are other tribes that are now represented in the area, and they are, in part, the Missouri Oto, and 175 other tribes in the state of Nebraska. We acknowledge that this was their land, and we honor it, and each time we meet, we pause to say that acknowledgement. Della?
John will come forward to light the chalice. From the inside of our hymnal, spark of the Spirit, cupped in earth's embrace, light of love, alive in all creation. As we kindle this flame, we rekindle our connection to the sacred web of life. Well, for our call to worship, I have a reading that I found on medium.com. It's by Jenny Justice. I thought that was a nice name. Kindness without justice, the trouble or misuse of kindness as a call for neutrality in the face of injustice. Kindness demands our focus and our attention. It requires we see the clarity and compassion exactly what is in front of us, around us, and within us. It asks us to see the pain, see the hurt, and use whatever position, power, privilege, or platform we have to address the sources of this pain and hurt in ourselves and in others. Kindness without justice is an empty gesture. Let the two motivate and inspire each other and always be connected. Let kindness be the spiritual push that motivates us into justice as a purposeful action.
There was a misprint in the original order of service. The song we're having is on page 346. Come sing a song with me. At First Unitarian, we are also in the middle of our fund drive, and we have the president of our congregation, Harold Cruz, who's going to say a few words about that.
Oops. Good morning, everybody. Today is a really beautiful day outside, cold and everything, but the thing that brings us here is what made this more special today. Well, I started attending this congregation in 2007, long time ago, when my oldest son was just a toddler. He had been grown, 2 other daughters has been born, and all of them are really into this community. What this community has bring to them, what this community has bring to my family, and somehow what we want to continue to bring to other kids that are present or that might come in the future. I and my family have been blessed with this community. We have been blessed with the support, with the somehow respite that we get every week. I and my family has been blessed with the givings of many of you and many others that have been given to this church. They are not present today, but still their spirit is with us. And I will give you thank you. Thank you to all of you for providing that support. Thank you to all of you that have been here before, that had built this community for me, my family, and for the rest of us to enjoy. This is a community where we reflect. This is a community where we enjoy and where our kids are becoming more confident, more tolerant, and especially our kids that will represent the true meaning of religion, liberal theology. So, after all that introduction, I was thinking, why I have to give? Why I give? And I give because I care. I give because this is how I support the hope that this community brings. I give because I honor the ones who give before me. I honor the ones that provide resources for our community to be in the place that they are right now. And I will give for this community to continue offer the hope that we need. The hope that everything can be changed or everything will be better in the tomorrow. I give because I support the good trouble that this community is offering. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. And now it's time for the story for all ages. We invite the young and the young at heart to come up and listen. Dr. Pearson is going to read the story, and afterwards we will sing the children off to their classes. The page number is on the board. Okay, so let's pay close attention to Dr. Pearson as she reads, Be Kind.
I'm a short person. That works? Good morning. How are we today? Good. I was making friends with my new friends DJ and Robbie over there, so we were already sharing the tea. All right, so this book is called Be Kind by Pat Zietlow Miller, illustrated by Jen Hill, and it was gifted to me by the principal of King Elementary a couple of years ago. All right. Can you see? Is that good? Tanisha spilled her grape juice yesterday all over her new dress. Everyone laughed. I almost did too, but Mom always tells me to be kind, so I tried. I don't think it worked. I said, purple is my favorite color. I thought Tanisha would smile, but she ran into the hall instead. When she came back, snack time was over. She put on her art smock and didn't look at anyone. I almost told Tanisha that art was my favorite class, but I didn't want her to leave again. So I painted purple splotches and added some green until I had a bunch of beautiful violets. While I painted, I thought about Tanisha. Should I have handed her my napkin? Let her borrow my sweatshirt? Spilled my juice so everyone stared at me instead? What does it mean to be kind anyway? Maybe it's giving. Making cookies for Mr. Rinaldi who lives alone. Letting someone with smaller feet have my too tight shoes. He might win races in them too. Maybe it's helping. Putting dirty dishes in the sink. Cleaning up after Otis, our class guinea pig. He's a messy eater. Maybe it's paying attention. Telling Desmond I like his blue boots. Asking the new girl to be my partner. Listening to Aunt Franny's stories, even the ones I've heard before. Being kind should be easy, like throwing away a wrapper, or recycling a bottle, or saying thank you, bless you. My mom says the quickest way to be kind is to use people's names. Hey Carla, what's new Omar? Good afternoon, Rabbi Mandelbaum. Being kind can be hard too, even when you know what to do. Teaching something that I'm good at to someone is tricky, even when I'm patient. And sticking up for someone when other kids aren't kind is really hard and really scary. Maybe I can't solve Tanisha's grape juice problem. Maybe all I can do is sit by her in art class and paint this picture for her because I know she likes purple too. Maybe I can only do small things, but my small things might join small things other people do. and together they can grow into something big. Something really big. So big that all our kindnesses spill out of our school, spread through town, travel across the country, and go all the way around the world. Right back to Tanisha and me. So we can be kind again and again and again. Thank you all for listening so sweetly.
Oh, that was beautiful. Our March Share the Plate beneficiary is the Women's Center for Advancement. The YCA assist everyone in the Omaha area who is experiencing domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking. Those on YouTube can donate using the web address on the screen. If you would like to share a joy or concern, please write it on the yellow card and put that in a collection plate, or write it in the chat online.
And now Colin McDonald will share the joys and concerns.
From Sarah Copeland, she says that her father Martin passed away on March 13th. He was fighting cancer, and it's been hard being so far away. We hope his spirit can find peace now, so sending thoughts and prayers her way. From River Majasana, in the tail end of January, he says, I developed some persistent health issues that eventually caused me to medically withdraw from college. However, that experience caused me to realize that I have a passion for wanting to work in the medical field and to pay the kind of treatment I received forward. So now I want to get my CNA and become a certified nursing assistant. However, the tuition fees are outside of my reach, so I decided to make a GoFundMe fundraiser to ask for support. The link to a GoFundMe is https://gofund.me/C9403C00, and that will be repeated in the Joys and Concerns e-blast, which will come out early this week. And from Keith and Lisa Glenn, saying that 1 year ago today we got married here at First Unitarian Church.
All right, thank you, Colin. Let's remember all of those joys and the concerns in a moment of silence. I just wanted to add one. There is a memorial service here in the church tomorrow evening for Stephen Davis, long-term member of First Unitarian Church. Now we'll join together in singing a song. Page 175, we celebrate the web of life. I hope you will indulge me if I say that our speaker, I mainly know from Facebook. Excuse me, I spend a lot of time there. And Dr. Pearson does too, and she does a lot of work there. Kindness, sympathy, concern, and sharing her joys from her life. And so I know her well that way. I've also met her a couple of times, and she spoke with us in January 2nd, actually, of last year, and that was a big snow day. So we did that. We did that online, and but we enjoyed her speaking to us very, very much. So we're glad, Ferial, that you're here to speak to us today. Her topic is kindness as social justice. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Doug, for the invitation. We've become good buddies now, I think. Thank you so much also to the rest of you for taking time today to be here, as well as those online. I don't know where the camera is, so wherever you are, thank you. So I just want to begin with a disclaimer that a couple of the stories I'm going to tell are difficult to hear, but please reflect on how much more difficult they were to live. There are many names that I have been called in my life, things that I've been accused of being: fat, a professed Muslim, a social justice warrior, that kindness lady. To be clear, I unashamedly own all those labels. The trouble comes when my accusers have different definitions of them than I do. So today I want to tell you a couple of stories that explain what happens when our definitions don't match, and hopefully get us all on the same page. The first story begins in 2019. I was invited out to Mullen, Nebraska. If any of you know where that is, it's halfway between Omaha and Denver. It's out in the Sandhills. Those of you who think Nebraska is flat, go on down there. Not flat at all. And I was invited there to speak to the entire community about kindness, about the Secret Kindness Agents project that my students and I created many years before that. And I'd done this many, many times. And so I was driving there, listening to my murder podcast, as I do that, reflecting upon the scenery and how beautiful it was out there and how I didn't know this part of Nebraska, and really excited to speak to the kids because that's my favorite thing, is talking to kids. And when I got there and checked into the little Bates motel that was there, it was a little scary, in the village of Mullen, which, by the way, did you know if a town is too small, it can't be called a town, it's called a village. So the village of Mullen has 481 people, checked into the Bates motel, which is what I'll call it, and I called the school and said, I'm here, I know you want me there sometime this afternoon. They said, why don't you come in a little early? The superintendent has some questions for you. So I said okay, tried to get a signal on my phone to figure out where the school was. And I got there and received a warm welcome from Chris, the lady who had seen me speak before in Grand Island. And I met the superintendent, and he said, now, I thought people might want to hear you speak, might want to hear your message, and so I sort of, advertised that you were coming. And folks have Googled you, and I just want to warn you that this is a very conservative space. And so if I were you, I wouldn't mention any LGBTQ stuff. So you know how the little hairs on the back of your head stand up? Yeah, every hair on I'm a hairy person, like all the hairs just stood up, and I was like, uh-oh, as a queer woman, this is a little scary. And I thought, what about the queer kids in Mullen, because they're here. And I said, well, I don't really have any of that in my presentation. And he said, anyway, we got to go get ready. And so went into the library, helped them set up, and as folks were coming in, I was, trying to make small talk. Nobody would make eye contact. I was the only chocolate chip I had seen in miles, hundreds and hundreds of miles. So I was feeling a little bit like the fly in the milk. And people weren't making eye contact, and I had this weird comment from the superintendent, and I was getting a little uncomfortable, but I thought it's okay. I'm just, out of sorts. And so I gave my talk about the Secret Kindness Agents. Y'all, there's some funny bits in there. Nobody laughed, okay? Nobody asked any questions. Nobody stayed after, which usually they do. And I just kept feeling weirder and weirder. And then as I was helping put everything together, the tables back and all of that, one of the men who was helping move the tables back said, are you going to have a pork sandwich tomorrow for lunch? And as a Muslim person, I thought, and I said, no. I thought either he's truly ignorant and doesn't know that Muslim people don't generally eat pork, or he's actually being mean. But I thought I don't have time to deal with this. I'm, again, the only one of my kind here. So I'm just going to leave it alone. So as I went to leave, I was called back. Pastor Bob wants to talk to you. And so I came back, and Pastor Bob said, what are you going to talk to the kids about tomorrow? Because that day was all for the adults in the community. And I said, well, the same thing as today, just without the research stuff, because that's boring. And he said, are you sure you won't be adding anything extra? And I said, no, it's literally the same stuff. Well, where else have you spoken? I said, well, I speak at schools, I speak at churches. You speak at churches? I said, yes. I wanted to say, note that I have not been struck by lightning heretofore. And he said, okay. And he felt satisfied, and he left. And then I went to the diner, and the diner owner was lovely. But he warned me twice while I was there, okay, be safe. And I thought, I can literally see the Bates Motel from here. Why are you telling me so much to be safe? And so I went to the motel, and I called the tall white man, my spouse. And I said, hey, tall white man. His real name is Danny, by the way. Hey, Danny, this is feeling really weird. This is all the things that have happened, and I don't know about this. And he said, you're tired. It's okay. You're just going to talk to the kids tomorrow and come home. It's fine. So I settled in for the night, ate my food, and I was watching Beat Bobby Flay because I don't have cable at home, so I was very excited, especially when Bobby Flay gets beaten because he's a little arrogant. And my phone dinged. It was about 10 o'clock at night, Mountain Time. And so it was a message from a friend of mine in Omaha, and she said, I have been tossing and turning, trying to figure out if I should tell you what's happening on Facebook about you. Do you want to know? And I said, yes. So she sent me a link to a woman's Facebook page. And on that Facebook page were a couple of posts about me. This woman lives in Mullen, and I'm just going to read you one of the posts. Once again, I am reminded how important it is for us to read our Bible and know what it says. Even if man has promoted and lauded individuals, we need to ask the Holy Spirit to give us discernment. We need to know who to listen to and who we give our children to. I've done research all afternoon long and am saddened by what I've found out. Ferial Pearson is scheduled to speak at our local school, and at first blush, her kindness movement seems appealing and surely needed today. However, what else does she support? Some of her causes include race issues, which isn't bad, transgender, apparently only one, and the LGBT. She demonstrated against Trump concerning his policy to deter terrorist immigrants. But my biggest concern of this total inclusivity is the desire to transfer Christian power to Muslim power. And as she does interviews, she talks about the Muslim faith and what the Quran says. And if our young kids don't know the Bible, and if they're not taught at home, they will buy all this hook, line, and sinker along with their teachers. Satan is the great deceiver and uses the most benign issues for his purposes. Surely isn't there some little old lady in Mullen that we know and trust that can talk about kindness? This post was shared 9 times. There were hundreds of comments in a village of 481 people. And I continued to read the comments. There was another post right after that, Ferial Pearson. The woman had dug from my maiden name, okay? A professed Muslim will be speaking tomorrow to our children at these times in these places. And one of the shares was by a parent named Stephen Dent and Monty Goodwin, who I later found out is a sheriff in a different state who's wanted for, he's being investigated for the murder of a young Indigenous man. He said, Steve, Chris Kyle was a cowboy first. Go be a cowboy. If any of you have heard of Chris Kyle, he wrote a book and was in the movie. The movie was about him, The American Sniper. And he bragged about how many Muslim people he had murdered, children and women. And I immediately saw that comment, ran to the bathroom, threw up, and called the tall white man and said, I want to come home right now. And he said, you idiot, it's dark. They know where you're staying. At least wait till sunrise. You know, your name's on your car with your vanity plate. Stay there. So I got dressed. And I'm waiting. And at about 4:30 in the morning, as I'm laying there fully dressed, I got another ding on my phone, and this time it was an email from the superintendent, and he said, my wife just woke me up and showed me what's on Facebook, and I'm so sorry, I can't believe this is happening here, and I understand if you're too afraid to speak tomorrow, we'll still honor our agreement. But as you can see, your message is needed here. My own children are looking forward to hearing you. And I'll make sure that I've asked Sheriff Joe to be there with you. Hooker County Sheriff Joe. And so I decided that I owed it to them at least to hear them out the next morning. And so as early as I could, I went to the school, met Sheriff Joe. They hid me in the office as this woman and her posse showed up. They escorted her down to the gym and surrounded her with Sheriff Joe and some teachers. And the children were texting the superintendent to make sure that I was safe. And that's when I realized I needed to stay, because if they were going to see one Muslim, it had better be me. If they were going to see an openly queer woman, it had better be me, because who knows who else they would see. And so after all of this was over, the press followed me, the sheriff followed me out of town. But before I left, the superintendent said, this is why we don't talk about this stuff. And I said, this is what happens when we don't talk about this stuff. Is the safety of people like me less important to you than the comfort of bigots? And so I left town. Sheriff followed me to make sure nobody else was following me. And I went all the way back home and settled back into my life. But I was very, very traumatized and really, really upset that that had been allowed to happen. And I was really, really worried about the queer children who live in Mullen, and still am. A few months later, I was invited to speak at Springfield Platteview schools. I don't know if any of you know where that is, much closer than Mullen, about 20 minutes drive from where my house was in Ralston. And I had been asked in November of 2019 by the school to come and speak about diversity. The principal said we have been having identity-based bullying issues. Springfield Platteview is considered a rural school community. It is very, 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 very white, like you know, very white, like glow in the dark white, like fish belly white, right? Super white. And they said that the few people of color are being bullied for their race, kids are being called the N-word. I heard later from mothers of Black children that kids were being called the N-word, they were being given death threats. A couple found nooses in their lockers. Children were driving around unashamedly with Confederate flags in their trucks. Poor children were being made fun of. They had recently lost everything in the flood. LGBT kids were being threatened. Girls were being threatened with sexual assault if they didn't do what they were being told. Basically, anybody who was what they felt was different was being targeted. And so the principal said, I got your name from the ESU. I'm told this is something you do. I said, absolutely, yes, I can come and do this. And so I worked with their guidance counselor for a couple of hours at the Tea Smith. Plug for the Tea Smith, go there and get your tea. And I worked with her and said, this is my presentation. It's very interactive. She said, this is exactly what we need. It was her first year there. She was obviously shaken by what she was seeing. And we went through it word by word. And then in January of 2020, before the world changed for good, I went to the school. And as I walked into the building, she took me in to meet the principal. And he kind of smirked and said, these kids are in a bubble. You need to give them some shock value. And he, for some reason, thought this was funny. And I just, that was weird. And as she took me down into the auditorium, she said, you know, I just wanted to let you know that parents heard you were coming and they went to the principal and superintendent with concerns. And I said, what were the concerns? She said, I don't know. I said, what communication went out about why I'm here? She said, I don't know. Anyway, it's time to start. And so there I was, once again, the only grown adult that was melanated, the only tinted human who was grown up. And the entire school was in there, so hundreds of people. The teachers were spotted, taken near their homeroom. So everybody was sitting with their homeroom in the theater, and then the superintendent, the principal, and other adults were in the wings and in the back. And I began my 45-minute presentation, and within a couple of minutes, the children started to heckle me and yell at me. When I said things like, women make less than men, a boy yelled, bullshit. They yelled at me that I was going to hell for being a Muslim. They said, you're pathetic standing there with your cane. And it continued. It continued for 43 minutes. I kept going. For the few children in and amongst the audience who were being respectful and actually participating appropriately, it was interesting to me that not one adult stopped any of this behavior. And the principal stood there with that same smirk on his face. So then after I was done, the guidance counselor rushed me out of the building and she said, I can't believe they didn't stop the kids. And I said, well, it's over. I'm going. # get out, right? Drove back to the university. And by the end of the day, I was getting emails from several different people. 2 particular beautiful young women wrote to me and said, we're so ashamed at how you were treated and disrespected by our classmates, and what you said was really important. And this is the first time we've heard adults speak about these issues openly, and you validated us and affirmed us, and thank you. One teacher wrote a similar email. That was her first year there, and she ended up leaving after that year, going back to her old district because of this environment at this school. She said she had started a diversity club and received harassment for it. And so then, by the end of the next day, I started getting threats. People were emailing my dean, my senior vice chancellor, to say that I should be fired, that they were going to sue me, they were going to sue the university, that I shouldn't be around near children, that I was dangerous. And pretty soon I found out that, and somebody forwarded me an email from the principal to the community saying, Dr. Ferial Pearson from UNO, once again giving my name and location, was supposed to come talk about kindness, but instead she went off script and talked about all the isms instead. So he basically set me up and then threw me under the bus, and that's why I was getting so many threats. The threats escalated and escalated and escalated. I eventually shut down my social media because I couldn't take it anymore, shut down my Twitter, because I was getting messages from lots of people threatening me in various different ways, calling me awful, awful names that I will not share here, and saying that they felt bad for my children, and that I was a terrible human being. Meanwhile, leadership at my university was being called to meetings with them. They were meeting with their lawyers and our lawyers and their school board president and their superintendent and their principal, and sort of acting as an intermediary. And what they were doing was asking me to be quiet on social media. They were saying things like, "These are good men, and their livelihoods are on the line. Do you really want to be responsible for them losing their jobs? This community is hurting, and you talking about them puts them in danger. Aren't you supposed to be the kindness lady? It's not kind of you to talk about this stuff. It's not nice. You're an educator, and you're supposed to be neutral." All of this while my family and I were trying to find a new place to live because the threats got so bad that we were worried for our lives. All of this while leaders at my institution, leaders at that school decided that my humanity didn't matter as much as theirs. Privately, the leadership at my university told me that they supported my work, that my work was important, and that I needed to continue to do it. 2 boys had recorded audio of my entire presentation, and this leader at my university said, "We listened to the presentation. It's excellent. It's research-based. We want you to continue to do this good work." But publicly, they never supported me. In Mullen and in Springfield Platteview, I was portrayed as the dangerous one. Because of me, there was sheriff presence requested at each school district because I was dangerous. As were my secret kindness agents. My secret kindness agent said, "Why don't we show the school district what kindness is?" And we pooled all our money and we bought Starbucks gift cards for every staff and school member. And my friend Amy, she's like, "I'm a little old white lady. I don't look dangerous at all. I'll deliver them." So she took all these Starbucks gift cards and yellow roses to the school to show them what kindness was. And the superintendent directed leadership at my university to tell me that this posed a risk to the school and it was annoying and a distraction to the academic environment. This is when I realized that I have very different definitions of kindness and justice than they do. And we have very different experiences around the impact of censorship and neutrality. Bishop Desmond Tutu said, "When an elephant is about to step on a mouse, the mouse does not appreciate your neutrality." I'll say it again. When an elephant is about to step on a mouse, the mouse does not appreciate your neutrality. People say they're being neutral, but in reality, they're being complicit in abuse and harm. The people who stayed neutral allowed the threats to not only continue, but to escalate. People say that speaking up might make someone uncomfortable, but the truth is, the target is already uncomfortable. So let's talk about what kindness is not. Kindness is not sympathy. It's not feeling sorry for someone. It's not pity. It's not saviorism. It's not expecting a reward or a thank you. It's not only focusing on people you think are worthy of your time and energy and resources. It's not niceness and politeness and brushing issues under the rug and remaining silent in the face of injustice. It's not deciding for other people what they need. It's not avoiding difficult conversations in order to not make the bigots uncomfortable. So then what is kindness? To me, kindness is empathy and compassion. It's solidarity both in public and in private. It's inclusion and generosity, consideration and affirmation. It's justice. It's equity. It's making sure that everyone has access to what they need to thrive and be happy, without expectation of reward, without expectation of thank you notes. It's focusing on everyone regardless of their background, thinking intersectionally about who we care about. It's speaking up when injustice happens. It's allyship and advocacy. It's being willing to endure discomfort towards a goal of positive change and harm reduction. So a few reminders on our journey towards kindness as social justice. We're all on a different part of the journey, right? Nobody came out of somebody's uterus being completely woke, right? And we all experience different teachers on our journeys. We take different roads, so we have to give grace to ourselves and to others. We have to give grace. We will mess up. We absolutely will mess up. But it's about what we do when we mess up, which is to focus on the impact of the harm that we caused, as opposed to our intentions when the harm was made. We have to keep our focus on the goal, which is to create positive change together for each other and to reduce harm for those most vulnerable. If you want to go quickly, you can go by yourself, but if you want to go far, you have to go with other people. We have to leave our egos behind. They're strong, right? Our egos are strong, but we have to leave them behind. We have to remember what the disability community taught us, which is nothing about us without us is for us. Meaning that anything you do for me without my input and without my consent was ever for me in the first place. It was for you to feel more comfortable, for you to feel better about yourself. And remember that it's not unkind to make bigots uncomfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pearson, for sharing with us and for clarifying what kindness is. Thank you. My closing words are from Scott Adams. Remember, there is no such thing as a small act of kindness. Every act creates a ripple with no logical end. We'll have please join us for coffee and conversation in the common room downstairs. Dr. Peterson will also have copies of her book, Secret Kindness Agents, for you to view. Have a good week.